You worked on the Dark Alliance game. What was that experience like?
So, working within the gaming industry, I've been doing this for 20 years now. My first published article was in the Rifter number 23 for Palladium Books. And I actually wrote that about 3 years before it went into the magazine. Because back in the day, and to a large extent these days, if you are submitting a document like a manuscript or something like that to a gaming company, even if they ask you for it, open submissions and things, it can take a long time before that will ever see print or publication. It's a lot faster these days with electronic media and things, but back then, they were paying for print runs of the Rifter magazine, and they just decided on a theme that month for magic and things, and my article on the Blade Mage got published 3 years after I sent it in there. I'd almost forgotten about it. And, I signed an agreement and I got a check in the mail. And I was like, whoa, yay, my first ever professional writing payment. And that was how I got started. And ever since then, I've been doing paid blogs and things like that, always in the background, nothing ever mainstream. And of course, the YouTube channel, and collaborating on a lot of other writing projects, the Feywild series, Legends of Frozen Fire, various other things. And I'm always collaborating on different channels and things like that. And of course, we're doing we've got a round table sort of discussion group where a bunch of YouTuber DMs talk about specific topics. And those are always fun. I really like, getting together with creative people. So one day I was on Discord and I got a message out of the blue, a private message out of the blue saying something about, it was just very cryptic. And I never dealt with this person again. It was some sort of scout agent, I don't know, feeling me out. And they sent me an NDA agreement out of the blue for nothing. And I was like, what? What's this for? Oh, before we discuss the project, we'd like to get you to sign an NDA. So I signed it, just so I could find out what the hell they were talking about. And it turns out it was a little Canadian gaming development company called Teknoaxe Games, who had released one or two good, reasonable titles. And I had a look at their I think Warframe was one of the games that they produced. And I had an interview with the CEO, and that interview very quickly turned into a work negotiation where he discovered that, I was legit. I did know a lot about the Forgotten Realms, and they were making a game about the Forgotten Realms. But the tricky thing is that they were making the game hoping to sell it to Wizards of the Coast, essentially. I don't think they actually had the resources to produce it and market it themselves. But they'd been working and developing this game completely in the blue, by themselves, without any knowledge of Wizards of the Coast that they were doing this, which was kind of ballsy, I got to admit. And after an initial consultation, and they sent me some material, and I gave them some feedback, they were like, right, you're the person we were looking for. And working with Teknoaxe was essentially just that. They sent me material. They sent me. They asked me for particular topics like the Reged Barbarians and Icewind Dale and all that sort of stuff, like the history and that sort of thing, and Goblinoid language and giant language and stuff. So I researched a lot of stuff for them. And if you go back in my YouTube channel and look for the video on the Uthgard Barbarians, that was the exact time that I was producing. I mainly wrote that video for Teknoaxe Games. To explain who Uthgard and the Reged Barbarians and the Uthgard Barbarians are and why they're so different. Anyway, so I did a lot of research for them, and they were paying me sort of an hourly commission rate, much more than I actually asked for originally. But it was always under the understanding that this is a side project and that YouTube, they can't match my YouTube income. So that was my main focus. And if it ever got in the way and detracted from my YouTube output, I would basically just cut back on the Teknoaxe Games work consulting instead. Then Teknoaxe Games got bought out by Wizards of the Coast while I was still contracted and working for them. And I noticed the change in attitude immediately, and it was not a good one. So Wizards of the Coast saw what I was doing and the amount of work I was putting into researching and presenting the lore. And because they obviously hadn't read all this lore or just didn't care, they decided to get me to, and they put a lot of stress on the lead writer for doing lore tablets and discoverable information and basically all of this sort of microtransaction-y sort of stuff. All of the extra little bits and pieces for people who are completionists, they called them. So people who like to collect every single little bit of information that you find in the game. and they wanted us to write every single little bit of information that you find in the game. And of course, there's very little information about the actual Icewind Dale region and Kelvin's Cairn and all that sort of stuff. So they were asking us to invent a lot of lore for the region. And I was like, hang on, that's not consultation, that's writing. That's different. Well, they're like, well, could you do some writing for us? And they gave me a few projects, which turned out to be a mountain of projects just thrown at me as a wall of things to do. I had like 6 or 7 different tasks to do, which were fairly extensive, like the history of orcs in the region. They wanted me to write tablets of information that were written by a female stone giant that was traveling along the surface and leaving these tablets in giant script all over the place. So I had to research giant script, and I had to base that on the script of Easter Island and the Neolithic sort of language stuff that was from there, which actually mirrors a lot of stuff and I had to research a lot of Icelandic lore and things for the language and the sound of it and extra giant language and stuff. I had to research Ebron because that's got a much more comprehensive Googliac language than the Forgotten Realms. Googliac being the language of goblins. All sorts of stuff. And meanwhile, my dad is having a severe health issues, and I was, it was starting to cut into my YouTube work, and I just went, okay, I'm out. And at the time, they gave me extra access to Wizard of the Coast archive, so I got access to the Tiamat server where they contain all their projects and stuff. So I got to see the stats of the Verbeeg before anybody else did. But I was kind of upset that Took Games couldn't afford the computer model for a quadruped cat. So they were going to model Guinevere as a special effect in the combat. I was just like, Guinevere's a much loved character, as much loved as like Drizzt himself. And just representing her as a graphic is not going to cut the mustard. Also, you're missing the fact that Kelvin's Cairn is one of the most dangerous things on Kelvin Cairn is crag cats, these white puma type creatures that will kill you. So if you pay very close attention to the game, you'll see that some of the goblinoids have got ruffs of white fur from crag cats, apparently. But yeah, other than that, I really liked a lot of the visual graphics and stuff like that they did for the game. But unfortunately, the gameplay turned out to not be funded properly by Wizard of the Coast. Like, they bought it out, but they didn't actually. All they basically gave them was a license to keep doing what they're doing. They didn't give them any sort of technical support, and they didn't delay the game or support them while the game needed proper development. And what you see when they started out and released the game was a beta test at best. And they were charging like a wounded bull for it. And yeah, it didn't go down well because it was supposed to be a group cooperative game, and everybody went, well, this game is broken, and didn't want to play it. So it's hard to play a group cooperative game if there's nobody in the world who's playing it. So it was quite effective of Wizard of the Coast to shut that product line down, essentially. Release it, but I don't think it was really released to be successful. I think it was just released early so that it wouldn't conflict with their planned release of Baldur's Gate 3. Yeah, and my experience with, like, Mike Mills approved my idea for what was underneath Kelvin's Cairn, which was basically a crashed sky fortress, Netherese City, and stuff like that. Those were all my ideas, and I didn't get any writing credit whatsoever from that. So they were happy to exploit me as a writer, even though I was signed on as a consultant. But certainly, yeah, they didn't give me any credit, and they just basically overworked me immediately to the point where I went, I'm out. That's not the work environment that is conducive to creativity. That's burning people out. That's burning out writers like they're a commodity. And that is their attitude towards everybody who works for them. They just burn them out because they don't care. There's a million other creatives as far as they're concerned. It's a stupid attitude. Yeah. So although it was kind of like, ooh, Wizard of the Coast, I had no illusions that company was any good from the outset. And every interaction I had with them was confirmation that it was an exploitive company, not a good creative one. Certainly nothing like Mongoose or anything like that.